The Galactic Council called it a dead world. Earth, a frozen anomaly on the outer edge of a quiet spiral arm, wrapped in endless storms and buried beneath kilometers of ice. Its oceans were locked solid, its atmosphere unstable, its surface seemingly barren. No advanced civilization would ever choose such a place, so the Council assumed none ever had. They were wrong. Humanity's arrival into the galactic community was quiet, almost forgettable. No grand armada announced their presence. No displays of overwhelming power lit up the void. Their ships were dark, angular, and strangely subdued, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Their diplomats spoke calmly, without arrogance or fear. And the Council laughed. A species born on a frozen world? Weak, fragile, evolutionarily inefficient. The Zalvorians dismissed them as biologically inferior, unable to withstand real galactic environments. The Virex Dominion labeled them resource-poor and strategically irrelevant. Even the Council archives categorized humanity as non-threatening, a footnote in a galaxy filled with conquerors and empires. Humanity did not argue. They did not defend themselves. They simply observed. They listened, learned, and adapted. While other species expanded outward in displays of dominance, humanity turned inward. Beneath Earth's frozen crust, hidden from every scan and sensor, they built something the galaxy could not understand. Not cities, not fleets, systems, vast underground networks stretching across continents, powered by geothermal energy and shielded by layers of ice and stone. Entire ecosystems flourished in the darkness, self-sustaining, efficient, and invisible. Human technology did not seek attention. It did not shine or radiate. It endured. Years passed. Then decades. The galaxy grew louder with war. It began, as it always did, over resources. A distant system rich in helium, 3 became the spark that fractured alliances and ignited old rivalries. Fleets clashed in brilliant displays of plasma and light. Entire worlds burned. Empires rose and fell in cycles of violence. And Earth remained silent, forgotten, until it was needed. The Zalvorians, stretched thin by prolonged conflict, began searching for new energy sources. Their scouts scanned dozens of systems before identifying Earth. A cold, lifeless planet with untapped geothermal potential, perfect for quick extraction. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't negotiate. They simply arrived. Sleek, radiant ships pierced Earth's orbit, their engines glowing with intense thermal output. Automated rigs descended onto the frozen surface, drilling deep into the crust in search of energy veins. To them, it was a routine operation. There were no signs of resistance. No cities. No defenses. Nothing. Primitive world confirmed, their commander reported. Begin extraction. Massive drills activated, boring through kilometers of ice and rock. The vibrations echoed deep beneath the surface, rippling through layers long untouched. And far below, something noticed. A network, silent, dormant, came alive. Sensors detected the intrusion instantly, not as an attack, but as a disturbance, a change in balance, a violation of a system carefully maintained for decades. The response was immediate. Not weapons, not alarms. Adjustment. Above, the Zalvorian fleet continued operations without concern. Their systems functioned perfectly. Energy readings were stable. Everything proceeded as expected. Then, slowly, their instruments began to flicker. Temperature readings dropped. At first, it was negligible. A minor fluctuation. Then it continued. And continued. Crew members reported unusual cold spots forming within the ships, areas where heat simply vanished. Consoles frosted over. Internal systems struggled to compensate. "What is causing this?" the commander demanded. No one had an answer, because Earth had not attacked. It had simply begun to respond. And for the first time, the silent world was no longer still. At first, the Zalvorians treated it as a malfunction. Their ships were among the most advanced in the Council, designed to operate in extreme stellar environments, withstand plasma storms, and regulate internal temperatures with flawless precision. A minor drop in heat meant nothing, until it didn't stop. "Recalibrate thermal systems," the commander ordered, his voice edged with irritation rather than concern. Engineers complied instantly. Diagnostics flooded the command deck. Every system reported normal function. Power output was stable. Heat generation was within expected parameters. And yet, the temperature continued to fall. Not rapidly, not violently, but steadily, unnaturally. Crew members began to notice it first. Breath misted faintly in corridors where it never should. Metal surfaces felt colder to the touch. Subtle at first, easy to ignore. Then the frost appeared. Thin crystalline patterns spread along control panels, creeping across surfaces like living things. Engineers wiped them away, confused, only to watch them return seconds later. "This is impossible," one technician whispered. The commander didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the main display, where thermal readings across the fleet were dropping in perfect synchronization. Not one ship. All of them. "Shut down non-essential systems," he ordered. "Redirect all energy to heat regulation." It should have worked. It didn't. Because the problem wasn't inside the ships. It was everything around them. Far below the surface of Earth, humanity's systems had fully awakened. Vast thermal networks, spanning continents, began to shift. Heat was no longer flowing naturally through the planet. It was being redirected, drawn away, siphoned into reservoirs deep beneath the crust. The planet itself was becoming a heat sink, and the Zalvorians were caught inside its reach. Above, panic began to spread. Core temperature dropping below operational thresholds. Energy output increasing, but heat levels are still falling. Thermal feedback systems are failing. The commander slammed his clawed hand against the console. "That's not possible. Increase output again." "We already have," the engineer shouted back. "The more energy we produce, the faster the heat disappears." That was the moment they realized the truth. This wasn't a failure. It was a trap. "Abort extraction," the commander snapped. "All ships, prepare for immediate departure." Engines roared to life across the fleet, their thermal signatures spiking as power surged. Normally, such output would flood the surrounding space with heat. Instead, it vanished, consumed. The ships began to rise from orbit, but slowly, too slowly. Their systems were fighting themselves. Power conduits froze even as energy surged through them. Plasma cores destabilized, flickering between states as temperatures dropped beyond safe limits. One ship went dark. No explosion. No warning. Just silence. Then another. And another. Each vessel froze from the inside out, systems locking in place as if time itself had stopped. Lights dimmed. Engines died. Communications cut off mid-sentence. The fleet was being erased. "Emergency jump," the commander roared. "Now!" Navigation struggled to comply. Sensors were failing. Coordinates drifted. Even space itself felt wrong, as if the absence of heat was distorting their readings. Jump calculations incomplete. Execute anyway. The command was never finished. The flagship shuddered violently. Frost surged across the bridge in an instant, crawling over consoles, walls, and crew alike. The temperature plummeted beyond survivable limits in seconds. The commander's final thought wasn't fear. It was confusion. They had come prepared for war. But there had been no battle. No enemy ships. No weapons fire. Only cold. Absolute, consuming cold. Then, nothing. Hours later, the fleet drifted in silence above Earth. Perfectly intact. Perfectly still. Frozen monuments to a mistake the galaxy did not yet understand. Far below, humanity observed. No celebration. No triumph. Only confirmation. The system had worked. The intrusion had been neutralized. And the message was clear. They had not fired a single shot. They had not revealed themselves. But they had defended their world. And for the first time in galactic history, cold had become a weapon. A silent one. An invisible one. And far more terrifying than anything the Council had ever faced. The first reports were dismissed as errors. A Zalvorian fleet. Gone? Impossible. Not destroyed. Not scattered. Not even damaged. Just silent. Their final transmissions had been fragmented, filled with static and incomplete data. Words like temperature collapse, system failure, and unrecoverable freeze appeared repeatedly, but none of it made sense. No known weapon could do that. No known species fought that way. The Galactic Council demanded verification. So they sent probes. Unmanned, shielded, and equipped with the most advanced sensors in the galaxy, the probes entered Earth's orbit cautiously. They scanned the drifting remains of the Zalvorian fleet, ships frozen in place, perfectly preserved, as if time itself had stopped around them. Data streamed back for exactly 17 seconds. Then every probe went dark. No explosion. No signal loss warning. Just silence. The council chambers, once filled with arrogance and debate, fell into uneasy quiet. Representatives who had once mocked humanity now avoided even speaking the name Earth aloud. Still, uncertainty bred defiance. Machines fail, one Virex delegate argued. Coincidences occur. We require direct observation. So they sent drones. Hundreds of them. Each one lasted less than a minute. What little data they returned only deepened the mystery. Sensors recorded drastic temperature drops with no identifiable source. Heat simply vanished. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, as if something unseen was draining it faster than it could be produced. There were no weapon signatures, no emissions, nothing to target. That was what frightened them most. Finally, the Council approved a joint expedition. Multiple species contributed ships, each equipped with redundant systems, experimental shielding, and crews trained for extreme conditions. If Earth was hiding a weapon, they would find it. This time, they would be ready. The fleet approached slowly, maintaining a safe distance beyond standard orbital range. Orders were strict. Do not engage, do not descend, do not provoke. Scan only, the lead commander instructed. We are here to observe. At first, everything appeared normal. Earth rotated quietly below them, its surface a vast expanse of white and grey. Storm systems churned across the atmosphere, violent but natural. There were still no visible cities, no energy grids, no signs of advanced civilization. "Confirm," one officer said. "No detectable infrastructure." "Impossible," another replied. "Something destroyed an entire fleet." "Then where is it?" No one answered. Because there was nothing to see. And then it began. A slight fluctuation in temperature, barely noticeable. Instruments registered it, but it fell within acceptable variance. "Minor drift," an engineer reported. "Adjusting." Moments later, it dropped again. This time, faster. Compensating. Then again. And again. Within minutes, every ship in the fleet registered the same pattern. A steady, uniform loss of heat across all systems. Not localized. Not directional. Everywhere. "Shields holding," one officer said quickly. "They're not being attacked," another replied. "There's nothing to block." That was the problem. There was no attack. No projectile. No beam. Just an environment that was changing. "Redirect power to thermal stabilization," the commander ordered, his voice tightening. Energy output increased. Reactors surged. Heat levels should have stabilized. They didn't. The more energy they produced, the faster the heat disappeared, as if something was pulling it away. "Where is it going?" someone whispered. No one had an answer, because the answer was everywhere. The battlefield wasn't space. It was physics itself. Panic began to ripple through the fleet. Systems that had never failed before started to falter. Condensation froze instantly along interior walls. Displays flickered as circuits struggled against the cold. "We need to leave," a pilot said. "Not yet," the commander snapped. "We hold position." Then one of the outer ships went dark. A collective silence followed. No explosion, sensors confirmed. No external damage. It just stopped. That was enough. "All ships, prepare to withdraw." The command was interrupted. A transmission cut through every channel. Clear. Precise. Impossible to block. It carried no signal signature, no origin point, yet every system received it perfectly. Translated instantly into every known language, it said, "You came to our world uninvited." A pause. Then, "Observe, if you wish. But do not touch." The fleet held position, frozen, not by cold, but by realization. For the first time, humanity had spoken, and somehow, that was even more terrifying than the silence. The Council could no longer deny it. Earth was not a dead world. It was a fortress. And worse, it was a fortress that did not need fleets, weapons, or visible defenses. It had something far more dangerous: control. Still, fear did not erase pride. Not completely. "There is no such thing as an untouchable system," the Virex High Strategist declared before the full council. "If humanity possesses a weapon, then it can be countered. If it can be countered, it can be defeated." Some agreed. Others remained silent. But in the end, the decision was made. A unified armada would be assembled, larger than any fleet in recent history. Not a probing expedition. Not a cautious observation. A show of absolute force. If Earth was a threat, it would be neutralized before it could spread. Thousands of ships gathered at the edge of human-controlled space. War vessels from dozens of species, each bringing their most advanced technology, their strongest weapons, their best commanders. This time, They would not enter orbit. They would not risk proximity. They would strike from a distance. "Target the planet's crust," the Supreme Commander ordered. "We break the surface, expose whatever lies beneath, and end this." No warnings were sent. No diplomacy attempted. The Armada fired. Beams of concentrated energy crossed the void. Plasma lances, antimatter streams, kinetic strikes, all converging on Earth's frozen surface. The ice cracked under the assault, fracturing in massive lines that stretched across continents. For a moment, it seemed to work. Fragments of ice shattered into orbit. Shock waves rippled through the atmosphere. The planet trembled under the force of the bombardment. Then the cracks stopped, not because the attack ended, but because something below had changed. The ice began to move, not collapsing, not breaking, rising. From the depths of the frozen oceans, vast structures emerged, monolithic, angular, and impossibly large. They pushed through the ice without resistance, displacing entire layers as if gravity itself no longer applied to them. The Armada fell silent. "What are those?" someone whispered across an open channel. No one answered, because nothing in their records resembled what they were seeing. These were not ships, not stations, not weapons, at least not in any form they understood. They pulsed once. A deep, unseen vibration passed through the system, and everything changed. Stars did not dim, but their light felt weaker. Energy readings across the Armada fluctuated wildly. Weapons that had been mid-charge suddenly lost coherence. Targeting systems glitched as if reality itself had shifted. Then the temperature dropped. Not just near Earth. Everywhere. Across the entire system. "Impossible," an officer breathed. "We're outside the effective range." "There is no range," another replied quietly. That was the truth they were only beginning to understand. Humanity wasn't projecting a weapon. They were redefining the environment. Heat bled away from every ship simultaneously, not drawn toward Earth, not redirected in any measurable direction. Just gone. The Armada tried to respond. Shields to maximum. Divert all power to thermal systems. Stabilize weapons. Return fire. Nothing worked. Because there was nothing to fight. No target. No source. Only a condition that could not be escaped. The cold reached them in seconds. Frost spread across hulls designed to withstand stellar cores. Engines faltered as internal systems froze faster than they could compensate. Entire ships began shutting down mid-command, their crews left staring at controls that no longer responded. "We have to retreat," the Supreme Commander shouted. "All ships, fall back." For the first time, there was no argument, no hesitation. The Armada turned as one, engines straining against a force they could not understand. Some ships managed to jump to faster-than-light travel. Many did not. Behind them, Earth remained, unmoved, untouched. The massive structures slowly sank back beneath the ice, disappearing as if they had never existed. The cracks on the surface began to seal, freezing over once more. Within hours, there was no visible sign of what had happened, only the silence, and the drifting remains of those who had stayed too long. For the second time, the galaxy had attacked Earth, and for the second time, Earth had answered without firing a single shot. But this time, the message was different. This was no longer a warning. It was a demonstration, and the galaxy had finally begun to understand. Humanity did not need to win wars. They only needed to make them impossible. The Armada's retreat echoed across the galaxy like a warning no one could ignore. Ships returned damaged, systems crippled, crews shaken to their core. Some vessels never arrived at all, lost to the same silent cold that had claimed fleets before them. Those who survived brought back something far more dangerous than defeat. They brought back fear. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. For the first time in its history, there were no arguments, no rivalries, no raised voices, only silence. Representatives sat motionless, replaying the data again and again. The same impossible conclusion surfaced every time. Humanity had not deployed a weapon. They had changed the rules. They are not engaging in warfare as we understand it, one analyst said quietly. They are altering environmental constants on a systemic level. Temperature, energy flow, possibly more. Another voice followed, hesitant. If they can do this in their own system, what stops them from doing it elsewhere? No one answered, because no one knew. That uncertainty was worse than any fleet. For cycles, the galaxy had believed power came from visibility. Bigger ships, brighter weapons, louder displays of dominance. Humanity had proven the opposite. Power could be silent, invisible, unstoppable. Finally, the Council's High Speaker leaned forward. What does humanity want? It was the only question that mattered. Moments later, every system in the chamber flickered. Not violently, not destructively, just enough to remind them. The transmission appeared without origin, without signal trace, exactly as it had before. It filled every display, translated instantly into every known language. Humanity had chosen to answer. We want nothing. A pause followed, long enough for unease to settle deeper. We built our world to survive. We learned to endure what others could not. The message continued, calm and precise. You saw silence and believed it was weakness. You saw cold and believed it was lifeless. Another pause. Then, you were wrong. No threats. No demands. Just truth. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber colder than before, though no system registered a change. From that day forward, the galaxy changed. Trade routes shifted to avoid Earth's system entirely. Military expansions were quietly redirected. Even the most aggressive empires removed human space from their projections, as if it no longer existed. No one wanted to test the limits of what humanity could do, because they had already seen enough. And Earth returned to silence. No fleets emerged. No expansion followed. No declarations were made. Beneath the ice, humanity continued as it always had, building, adapting, watching. Their systems remained active, their networks ever present, but they did not reach outward. They did not need to. The message had been delivered. Clearly, completely, and permanently. In time, new generations across the galaxy would study what happened. Scholars would debate it. Strategists would attempt to understand it. None of them would succeed, because the lesson was not in the technology. It was in the mistake. The galaxy had believed that war required noise, explosions, weapons, conflict. Humanity had proven otherwise. War could be ended without a single shot. All it took was control and silence. From then on, whenever discussions of conquest arose, whenever a species considered expanding into unknown systems, one phrase would always follow. Not that one. No coordinates were needed. Everyone knew. Because somewhere in the dark, on a frozen world beneath endless ice, Silence was waiting, and it was stronger than any fleet the galaxy could ever build.